I am cutting the cord to my hammock. What's up, backpackers? I am Dan and welcome to Backpacking Adventures. Now on this channel we talk about everything backpacking, hiking, and gear. So if those interest you, consider subscribing. So today I am out for another 20-mile day hike, and I decided to, while I'm on this hike, to answer one of the questions I've been getting a lot lately from friends and family, which is, why did you switch to a tent? Why aren't you still with your hammock? So today I'm going to address that question. First, I still love my hammock. This video is in no way trying to convince you of which is better than the other. A hammock setup or a basic shelter setup is something that is very personal to you. So these are just my opinions. And what works for me may not necessarily work for you, may be totally different. And if you've been following my channel for any period of time, you know that I've been hammock camping for a little over probably about 3 years now. And so far, I love it. And then back in November of last year of 2019, I did purchase a tent. And I've been using a tent all winter ever since. The main reason is, as I'm deciding to do some through hikes this year. I would like to do a larger hike, about 80 some miles for the Susquehannock Trail. And then ultimately doing the Vermont Long Trail, which is about 273 miles, I believe. What I want to do is compare the hammock with the tent to see which is more efficient, because let's face it, if you watch this channel, you know I'm lazy. I don't like things complicated, so I'm just looking for the most efficient way. And normally when I hike, I try to put in some big miles. So when I get to camp at night, I just want to set up, eat, and then just go to bed or just relax. I don't want to be messing with a lot of complicated things. And when you do a through hike, it'll be day after day after day, so I'm just looking for the most efficient way. And next week I'm going to start some of my longer hikes because there's more hours in a day for daylight. So I'll be able to hike, 15, 20 miles. And this will be a really good test because I didn't really get to test that out this winter. So now both tents and hammocks both have their pros and cons. So basically I'm just going to review some of these pros and cons. And again, these are my pros and cons, so your opinion may be totally different. First, we'll talk about the pros of a hammock. And one of the biggest pros, at least that I've seen, is that your choices of campsites are pretty much endless. When choosing a campsite, all you basically need is 2 trees spaced 15 to 20 feet apart. The rocks on the ground aren't necessarily a big deal, and sticks and twigs, and it doesn't even have to be flat. So if you are hiking, and that was one of my favorite things, is at a long day when I started to get tired, I could go until I just was sick of hiking, just found 2 trees hung, and there I was. I don't usually make a fire, I don't make a mess or anything like that, so I don't leave any trace whatsoever. So it was very convenient just to be able to find 2 trees. The second pro is you're not crawling on the ground. The hammock is usually at about waist level, or to the point where you're sitting in it, you're like sitting in a chair. So getting in and out of it is simply just sitting down, laying back. You don't have to get on your hands and knees and crawl. And if you're old and horizontally enhanced like me, it starts to get tough to get up in and out from the ground. So it is easier. If you know anybody that's a hammock camper, you probably already heard them say that it is the absolute most comfortable sleep you can get in a hammock. And it's true. If you can lay on your back, it's a very comfortable experience. And the reason is there's no pressure points, nothing pushing up against you. You're pretty much cocooned in your hammock. Another big pro that I see is that a hammock setup is completely, almost 100% customizable. There are almost unlimited different types of tarps, different shelters you can use. The hammocks, if you order a good custom one, you can pick the colors, the prints, the types of materials, the types of zippers. You can even choose the type and color of thread that it's even sewn with. So you can really get personal with suspension, with the hammock, with the tarp, with almost everything about it, and make it unique to you. Now for some cons of the hammock. Well, one of the cons is you need trees. It's very difficult to set up a hammock without trees. So you're limited to camping in wooded areas or places where you can adequately hang. Now, yes, you can pitch your tarp on the ground using sticks or trekking poles, but then you really don't have any ground insulation unless you carry an extra sleep pad, which, what's the point? I guess you could always carry one, but it's just extra weight. And because of this, it's going to limit the areas where you're going to be able to hike. You won't be able to camp in desert areas or any wide open fields at night to look at the stars, again, unless you're going to just lay on the ground if you have a sleeping pad with you. Another one of the cons is with the comfort. Yes, I did say that if you can lay on your back, it can be very, very comfortable. And again, that's if you can stay in one spot all the time. It is very difficult in a lot of hammocks to roll over and stay on your side because your underquilts get readjusted. And it just is difficult just to sleep on your side. It just doesn't get comfortable. At least it hasn't been for me, and I've tried. Another one with comfort is in a hot summer day, you are completely cocooned. Your hammock is up against you. Even if you use your different pullouts, it's still kind of up against you, and you're sweating, and then your shelter gets wet. And one of the biggest cons, at least that I see for me, is there are a lot of moving parts to a hammock setup. You have the suspension, you have the different types of buckles or clips or carabiners, however you're going to hook up the suspension. You have different types of straps. You have whoopee slings, regular straps, all different kinds of different things. Then on top of that, you have the hammock itself. You have to set that up. It has to be a certain height. The foot and the head end have to be a certain height. Trees have to be a certain distance apart. Then you have to set up your underquilt, and that has to be set perfectly or you're going to have cold spots. And for me, there's been multiple times in the middle of the night I had to get up, get out of my hammock, and adjust my underquilt, because it's not easy just to adjust from inside the hammock. At least for me, it wasn't. Then you have your shelter. You have to set up your tarp, have to make sure it's pulled out and the guy lines are pulled out. There's just a lot more moving parts. And with a lot of moving parts, there just leaves more that can go wrong. And if your suspension doesn't work, you're laying on the ground. And if your underquilt doesn't work, you're just going to be cold. The last con that I can see with the hammock setup is the actual weight. Now, when I compare my Altiplex by Z-Packs tent with my hammock setup, which is an ultralight setup, I have a Dyneema tarp, a very light hammock. My tarp and tent setup is almost, there's about a pound difference between the two, so I can save weight as well. So now let's talk about some of the pros with a tent. One of the obvious is you don't need trees to set it up. You can set up a tent in almost any terrain, provided the ground is relatively level and flat, and there's not a lot of rocks and sticks, which you can move in most cases. So it does expand where you can actually camp. And again, many people will say that sleeping in a hammock is way more comfortable than sleeping in a tent, but I kind of disagree with that. As long as you have a good quality sleeping pad, then you're pretty much as comfortable as you are in a hammock, at least to me. I don't see much of a difference. One of the other differences I can see with a tent and a sleeping pad is I can toss and turn as much as I want. I don't have to grab the hammock and shift my weight. I can just roll over on my side and everything's fine. Another pro to using a tent is there are fewer moving parts. There are less to know, less complications. And let's take my tent, for example, to Z-Packs Altiplex. I just stake out the two back guy outs, put my trekking pole in, then I just stake the rest out. It's done. Put my sleeping pad in, all my gear. It's just done. It's just that easy. There's not a lot of moving parts to mess up. Now, my tent is a single wall tent, but with a double wall tent, you do have the tent itself, the rainfly, and then the poles. But they all set up the same every time, and you don't necessarily have to worry about different measurements and making sure things are precise. You just put the thing together and it works. The pro to the tent is the weight and the packability. My tent setup weighs about a pound less than my hammock setup. So to me, I'm saving a lot of weight, and there's only that one piece of the shelter to put in. When I would use my hammock, I would put my hammock inside my backpack, and then I would have no other room for my shelter, so that would have to go on the outside. I don't have to do that. Everything can now go in my backpack. Now for some of the cons of a tent. Well, you do need to find an open space and flat ground, relatively flat, enough that you can stand, that's clear of rocks and any kind of debris, or that you at least have the ability to do that. And in most cases, that's not too difficult to do, but it's not just with a hammock where you can just look over, see two trees, and pitch your hammock, there you go, you're done. And the last con for the tent, well, it is almost zero customizable. Sure, when you're picking a tent, you can probably choose between some colors, maybe one or two other things, but it's not customizable. What you see is what you get. So in the end, you're probably thinking, well, why are you switching to a tent when there obviously seems to be a lot more pros than cons with a hammock setup? Well, there's two main reasons for that. Well, the first reason is very simple. It's that there's a lot less moving parts with a tent than there is with a hammock. To me, setting up a tent is just much easier, at least the tent that I have. I just stake out the two back corners, put the trekking pole in, stake out the rest, it's done. That's all I have to do. I don't have to worry about the height of the suspension. I don't have to worry about falling to the ground, because you only want to hang your hammock as high as you want to fall. So it's just an easier setup for me. It literally takes me probably 3 or 4 minutes to set up my tent. It takes me a lot longer to set up and adjust my hammock, because I have to adjust things too. I don't have to do that with my tent. The most I'd have to adjust is tightening a guy line. That's it. And comfort's not an issue, because I don't see any difference between me sleeping on the ground or sleeping in a hammock, and that's just me. I know some people can't sleep on the ground. They may have back problems or whatever, and that's fine. hammocks are good options. And second, this is a backpacking channel. I go backpacking. I'm trying to give you guys the experiences that I'm getting, and I would be remiss in my duties as a backpacking YouTube channel if I only stuck with one small thing and kept in a box. So when I'm backpacking, I'm sure you want to see me sleeping in a hammock and a tent. And this year I'm going to try doing just the tarp camping and bivvy camping. So I'm trying to expand the horizons so everyone can get a taste of all these different options that are out there and have fun along the way. Now, will I stop totally using my hammock? No, absolutely not. I'm just looking for efficient ways to do longer through hikes. But yes, I will continue to use my hammock. I love it. It's fun. It's fun to set up my hammock and sleep in the sky. So let me know in the comments below which you prefer, or both. Do you prefer hammock and tent camping like I do? Let me know. If you like this video, make sure you like it and subscribe to the channel. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.